Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach. I am joined by my co-host and producer, Holly Deschenes. So we've had a bit of a fall break, if you will. So we both had some travels going on. And, it's just, so this is our 36th episode. So, we're just kind of always trying to figure out, hey, what's our recipe? So trying to open that up a little bit. And so we're going to be trying some new things today, try to give you a little bit more window into my life, what's been going on, and also some of the client work that's come up recently. So we're recording the day after Kona, so the Ironman World Championship for the women. I've worked with a number of athletes leading up to that, and so it's just kind of this theme of really finding self-belief. That was a main idea that I kept seeing surface in my work leading up to the race. So we're going to go in a little bit to that idea, but first we'll kind of catch up on what we've been up to. So, first, Holly, you went to Santa Cruz, right, for a race with your husband
Yeah.
and had some adventures in California.
Yeah, that's my favorite place. Anybody who knows me, who listens will know that, long-term life goal of mine is to end up in California at some point.
Hmm.
We just really love it there. There's not a whole lot of places, at least in North America, that you can go aside from the West Coast where you got mountains and ocean really close together.
Hmm.
So it's ideal. Santa Cruz was a beautiful race. I know there's maybe some triathletes that listen to this as well. And if they haven't done that, I recommend it. The beach starts like super cool, and the bike course is very beautiful along the Pacific Coast Highway. So yeah, it was awesome. We love it there. Some friends of ours got married while we were out there as well. So it was fun to get to be a part of that.
Well, cool. So you're more attracted to Northern California or Central?
The Central
Kind of Central.
Coast. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And so just the scenery and all the vibes there.
Yeah, I do appreciate like the kind of surfer vibe that you get in Santa Cruz and like down to like Monterey. I mean, there's a lot of money down like Monterey and Carmel, but
Mhm.
just it's very laid back. We went to the Sonoma coast this time for a few days while we were there. It's just a very different vibe. Like California
Mhm.
is almost like three distinctly different places in one state.
Yeah.
You've got Southern California and LA and all of that, and then the Central Coast and then Northern California. And they all just have a very different feel. And that doesn't even count when you go east, like over by Sacramento. That's also like a whole different kind of place. So,
Well, and then there's also like kind of the desert and like Palm Springs and
yeah.
all that. So it's basically its own like country, like in a state,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, I'm from Illinois, so obviously, you have Chicago and then you have like the rest of the state, right? It's
Right.
like this like two distinct fields. So yeah, it's super interesting and obviously a very beautiful place.
Yeah.
I mean, many people are drawn to it for a good reason, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And while we were there, have you ever been to San Francisco?
Yeah. I mean, just for a day, but
Oh, just for a day. While we were there, we went to I had never done, like, we've been to California multiple times, but we'd never gone to the Golden Gate Park before.
oh, okay.
We went to the Golden Gate Park, and while I was there, anybody who follows you closely would follow your YouTube and know about like the what we did in Boulder and all of that. But while we were there, I
Hmm.
was like, ooh, we need a Brandon trip where we film a whole bunch of things in Golden Gate Park. It was very much your vibe. I think you would really like it.
Well, cool. Yeah, we'll have
Yeah.
to get that scheduled.
Yeah.
The work we did in Denver was super cool, integrating the nature and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think kind of if we can find good scenery, it just adds another dynamic to it. So that's good. Well, cool. So, I'm fresh off a trip to Europe, leading up to, so I had gone to Nice for the World Championships to support one of my clients. We always hear about the French Riviera and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth seeing.
Yeah.
It's stunning. The weather was great. The race, it's my first world championship I've gone to. I'll probably make it to Kona at some point, I would imagine, but like now that they're going to be doing it there full time. But yeah, it's on another level where, there's the crowds are bigger and then they have like a helicopter, like following like everything. So it just camera people everywhere. Like the level of production was just really cool to see. I don't think yeah, it's something special if you're in a triathlon to kind of witness like the magnitude of like putting on an event like this. And so yeah, it was a special race. Obviously the three Norwegian guys, really
Yeah.
just killed it. I think The bar is always getting raised higher, and it's interesting to kind of see how it's evolved. My client that I supported, specifically, he's been doing like the T100, which is like a lot of shorter stuff, and that's changed dramatically in the last year or two. Just everybody's just like so fast, and there is no like hitting a wall anymore in the sport. It just kind of seems like everybody just keeps going. So the women's race yesterday was a little bit different story. Had a couple, with the Lucy and Taylor, kind of really hitting the wall there. That was tough to see. It's an interesting sport. All these athletes put so much into it, and yeah, the just given the race day dynamics, you never know what's going to happen. So it's cool to kind of see it all develop. And yeah, like at the at the men's race, they're like, oh yeah, we don't think anybody's going to finish under 8 hours. And then there's three people that did, and
Yeah.
the guy that won it was 8 minute, like 7:52 or something. And so it's just like you just got to keep working. You can never stop, right? And it's like it's really interesting to see the level that these athletes can really push themselves to. And I'm grateful to be a part of that journey for some of these athletes. It's just you really got to tinker with and optimize the mindset on so many levels. So this idea of self-belief, it's just kind of, why do we stop believing in ourselves? Like generally through disappointment, letdowns, painful events, getting blindsided with things that you don't expect. And then we start to lose trust a little bit, right? I'm on this path and I expect certain things to happen. And if they don't, that can really kind of tank our confidence. It could really start to form these jaded negative stories about ourselves. We all have these disappointments and letdowns, and we can always get to the other side of them, but there's generally so many gifts in that. Like, if you're on this track and having success, and then there is a bit of a downfall, that's always an opportunity to really deepen your learning and get to know yourself on a deeper level. And you can kind of build this more self-sustaining way of being, because a lot of times we start off very externally focused. And so a lot of our motivations are kind of fixated on achievements that are outside of ourselves. And so we're always just trying with this work, we're trying to guide back to yourself of like, you are good enough. You can basically achieve anything you'd like, but we need to form this healthy relationship with yourself, right? And so because that's what sustains you through the ups and downs that inevitably happen. With a lot of these athletes, they think they're going to have their breakthrough and then they don't, or something unexpected happens. It's just heartbreaking when you put so much time and energy into these things, right? Especially these pros, it's, they're 30-hour work weeks of just exercising, right? Just
Yeah.
training,
Yes.
just making sure nutrition's out, just eating nonstop, making sure you sleep properly, like, and God forbid something in life happens, right? To add to the mix. And, so worked with a number of clients that, have had babies and things like that, or, stuff going on with their parents. And so like the extra stuff on top of everything they already do in a day, it can be really tough to fight through that stuff. Cause when you're tired and exhausted all the time, and, usually irritated too, right? All the stress
Sure.
hormones are always high.
Yeah.
So it really affects the mood, affects your social battery. Like, do you have the energy to go hang out with people and build a social life too and stuff like that? It's very difficult to balance these things. And, so that's a lot of the work I do is helping people align the pieces a little bit better so that they can optimize their life. And a big one is specifically with the client is, she recently had a baby, and it's just forming a new relationship with the sport, right? Where it's like, oh, I can no longer just train all day. I can no longer just do all, like, there's her life's more multidimensional now. And so you basically have to like soften the identity. You have to back off of like, yeah, I can't live the same life. I can't carry myself the same way. There's more involved. And so what was beautiful is it just kind of really, I feel like she moved into it pretty well, where she was able to see that perspective going into Kona of like, well, yeah, this isn't all that matters to me anymore. When we do that, when we soften the identity attached to something, a lot of the pressure, a lot of the stress goes out the window, right? Because we put it in its proper lens of like, there's more to life. Yes, this is a part of me, but it's not all of me. And so So that's a big thing. We, try to always just adjust the lens to the bigger picture of, yes, it's super cool to push your limits. Yes, it's cool to break through and maybe get on the podium, but that isn't all that matters in life. And if it is all that matters, generally we've kind of lost perspective on and kind of the grandness of life. There are just so many things for us to experience, and we may need that experience for a time to really go all in on something. But I'd say there's always a stage where that's going to soften, and that might need to shift to something different. There's people that do that very gracefully and very well, and there's people that really struggle with that transition. And that's part of self-belief too, is this, being able to put things in their proper perspective where you're not putting unfair expectations on yourself. Because if I have these unfair expectations, that can really hurt my confidence, because I'm measuring myself to a version that's like impossible for me to reach now. And that's why it's important to age gracefully and go through these different cycles of life to be up to speed with who you are now. It's kind of this ongoing evolution, and we might be missing out on a lot of cool things if we just kind of remain in that tunnel vision. That's where the identity just gets locked into me needing things to be a certain way in order to be happy. But I've just put too much emphasis in one basket. It's that ability to zoom out and see things a little bit differently. And then basically it is this ability to align with gratitude as well. Like, yeah, especially like going to a place like Kona or Nice, you're just like, oh, I get to travel the world. I get to go to these places and I get to race. How lucky am I? That's kind of like a good outlook to basically keep it always in a healthy place is super important, because if we put too much of the expectations on it, then it can really take the joy out of things for us. And so it's that ability to see it for what it is, right? These things are meaningful, but that's not all there is.
All makes sense. And I was thinking as you were talking through that a little bit yesterday, actually, I was on a bike ride and I was talking with someone. We were talking about sort of the different phases and when you hit the phase of no longer needing to prove yourself to anyone. So some of what
Mhm.
you were saying there made me think of that too. Like when you set these unreasonable expectations for each other, or for yourself, it's sometimes because of this like desire to prove yourself. We were talking specifically career wise when I was talking with him, but yeah, when you kind of outgrow that, to your point or whatever, and it's no longer about proving it to anybody else.
It always just puts you outside yourself. It's like, oftentimes it's somebody's hurt you and made you feel not good enough. And so you develop this chip on your shoulder of like, oh, I need to like show them. But it's like, well, like they're the focus now. So so we're kind of feeding so much energy into that. And you see this commonly with athletes if they've had a coach that like really hurt them, let them down, abandoned them. A parent, it's just kind of like who abandoned you when you needed them the most. That's generally where that's going to come from, is okay, I'm going to prove to them like how good I am, or that I am worthy or deserving. And powerful motivator, you see it very often in high performers where it really like leads you to put in a lot of work and effort to develop skills. But there is a point where you start to make things out to be more than they are, right? Where it's just, you can start to come from desperation or things like that. If we're still engaged with that dynamic of not feeling good enough and needing to prove myself. And so that's like a primary thing I like to transform with my clients, pretty much right off the bat, is like, let's bring it back to you. Let's make peace with this so that you can free yourself from all that, where you're not putting all these expectations on you that are unreasonable just to try and prove yourself to somebody that hurts you, right? Because even if you did have the breakthrough, even if you had the success, they probably wouldn't care, right? It's like you're probably not, they're not going to say that they were wrong. They're not going to say, so occasionally that happens, but we want to learn to be okay without that, right? Because it's at the end of the day, it is about you. It's about expressing yourself and living your life in a way that feels good to you, and that's independent of anybody else. So that's a good one for people to really look at and try and let go of, because if held on too long, like it can be very damaging, where it does tend to make people miserable the longer they carry that, where yeah, nothing's ever good enough. And that starts to form this like shame-based relationship with yourself. So Yeah, I think that's a good one to look at for most people is, who let you down, who abandoned you, who maybe used you, maybe you felt like thrown away because especially with athletes, a lot of times like high school coaches, they'll like push you to your limits and then you end up getting injured, that kind of thing, because they're focused on winning and they don't have your best interest at hand. They're not seeing your long-term potential. So, super common stuff there.
So, on the theme of self belief, we're talking about some of your clients who are world class athletes that you're working with, which is building a different kind of self belief, I would say. Well, it's the same self belief, but like a different level of
Hmm.
self belief, maybe than, an age grouper. I don't know how many age groupers you work with today besides my husband and myself, but I think about, when I started out in this sport, it could be any sport though, like there is an element of developing self-belief that's just like, oh yeah, I can ride my bike for, for a sprint that'd be like 20 miles or less, right? And
Hmm.
even just like the very basics of getting
Hmm.
started and the belief in that.
Yeah, I mean, there's varying degrees of it, and at the end of the day, it's like you're trying to build stuff that like can't be taken away from you. I think that's like an important idea. So yeah, whether we are talking about a world class athlete or just kind of your normal day to day person, it's like, well, we need things that we can like kind of hang our hat on that make us feel good about ourselves. Part of that process is it's through working through challenges, doing harder things. I haven't done this before and my mind has some fears and anxieties about it and I don't think it's possible for me. That starts to shift it to like proving it to yourself rather than proving it to somebody else. That's where we go back to like, oh, like I am capable of this. Like, and the thing is, you might not get things on your first try, and most of the time you don't, right? But that ability to stick with the process and continue to work at things that you keep finding your answers that give you progress and a path forward. The more I do that, the more I willingly take on challenges, the more, and that's one of the things I appreciate about triathletes, whether it's age group or a pro, is just like kind of this willing, like, it's the willingness to do hard things on a daily basis. And it's almost to excess too, where it's another level, but well, that starts to make a lot of the other things in life like not a big deal. Okay. It's like, oh, I've like done this. So like why can't I do this smaller thing over here? It starts to make a lot of the problems insignificant. And so that's what with self-belief, that's what we're doing is we're really starting to carry ourselves in a way that no matter what happens, I know I'll be okay. No matter what happens, I know I can work at something and improve it. I can do things that I haven't done before, but it's like I know there's like a path to it. I just have to keep going down that road. And many of the conversations with your husband, it's we talk about his swim a lot. We talk about, hey, like I keep thinking I'm at this level when I've like far surpassed that, right? And so it's like trying to get your mind to really wrap in, believe that, hey, like I am capable of these things. And because it's always just kind of pulling from the painful things in our life to point to why we can't do it. But so when we take that step back and we really just get dialed into, oh, wait, I actually like, I conquered this a long time ago, right? I said that a lot on this podcast is, a lot of times like we're not mentally there with that, like, hey, this actually isn't even a problem anymore. I just still believe it is. And because like I have all the evidence to support that I'm past it, but maybe it was just a part of me for so long that I don't recognize it. That's really the importance of reflection is it just gets us in that mode of it's like, oh, I'm actually doing pretty good here. I've actually like grown a lot. I've made a lot of progress. And and it's always in the things that used to be very difficult for us or felt impossible that are now like a natural, easy part of our life. Like those are usually the biggest signs, but it's because it's like a natural, easy part of our life. We don't really recognize it. It's just kind of like we don't notice that it's happened already, but our mind still just wants to go there. That's why it's important to always be updating and to always take that step back and be like, okay, I'm going to consciously integrate this information that this belief I have like is stupid. Actually, it doesn't even apply.
Right.
It doesn't serve me in any way. It feeds an old story. I might have some sabotage patterns still going on. I might have some things that I'm still struggling with, and and I might just use that as like extra data to say why I can't do something. We can do the opposite with it too, right? We can be like, oh, I have conquered it, so why is this any different? Why can't I do it with this thing? So so it's just that that perspective is so powerful to see that you're never the same person, whether you think you are or not. Everything is a constant evolution, and it's just like maybe we haven't really ingrained that self-belief in ourselves that we've conquered these things. We might be leaving it in the unresolved place, right? And so that's where we dig in and we're like, okay, I need to really cement this into myself that I'm really capable of this and that I've actually already done it. It kind of doesn't make sense that I believe in it. And it's like a big imposter syndrome thing. A lot of times people are like actively like living the life that they've wanted, but then they don't recognize it. But then they're, oh, like I don't belong in this area. But it's just like, well, you're already doing it. Like you're already there. You just have to like get up to speed with that.
For sure. When you were going through that, I was thinking a little bit about the conversation we had a couple days ago, even where I can't remember exactly how it came up, but I was sort of questioning, I'm just thinking about when you're making progress, and we've like tied it back to, sport in some way or swimming or whatever, but even just in life, right? Like where you make progress and then somehow your mind is still taking you backwards, and maybe you don't live there as long, but you're still kind of finding yourself back there.
Mm.
It feels like a never-ending journey, I guess.
And I would say there's so many layers and levels to this stuff. So many times we've been operating under certain ideas or beliefs like pretty much the entirety of our life. And so it's not just a simple like, oh, I don't believe that anymore, because what your mind does is it like files it into all these different categories. There might be like 20 different dynamics it's factoring into one idea, right? And so if I'm like stuck back there again, it's just like, oh, there's still a part of me that's left back there. And and the recognition that I don't stay there as long and I move through these things a lot faster. That's the piece we want to feel good about, is that like, oh, I'm actually making a lot of progress. And I just thought I had this, but I didn't. Right. And so I often go through this with my business where I'm like, so this summer I went through this like massive dry spell where it was like nothing worked. It didn't matter what I did. Nobody wanted to work with me. At least that's the way it seemed. Yeah,
Sure.
I'm exaggerating a little bit. I kind of thought like I had this rhythm going. I thought like, because that's the thing is there's times it's like continuous flow and it's just like I don't even have to think about it. And sales are really easy and things like that. But then there's times where it's like, no, you gotta work harder here. And I think it's by design. It's this continuous refinement process of, it's the thing you want it to be done, you want that phase to be over. But it's like each time you're there, it does take you deeper into yourself and you do get more gifts. That's a big thing. Like I acknowledge, it's just like, well, for me, like a big part, like I do reflect all the time. And, but it's like when when I'm really struggling, like it's like times 100. I know there's like something stuck here. I'm going to like dig until I find it. Right. And so, that's what like this summer did for me. I was like, oh, like I'm feeling really like confident in my abilities. Like, client work's going well. It's like my sessions, I feel like are the best they've ever been. I'm like, okay, that's going to lead to good results. But then like when the well gets shut off, it's just like, oh, like what's jamming up the well?
Yeah.
That's where it's just like, I know enough at this point that it's an inside job that I need to level up in some way, and I need to like dig into myself until I find out what that is. Earlier in the year, I got a bunch of business coaching where I started to understand business on deeper levels and stuff. And so I'm just like, okay, well, like I had this period of learning and now I'm like in this period of integrating. It's really about, hey, when things stop, it didn't mean that you digressed or that things got worse. It's more of just like you're trying to remodel yourself to align with the new information. The flow stops for you to integrate. So it's just really getting to this place of like, okay, well, like, how do I start to take all those things I learned and how do I apply them? There's aspects of me, I can be very stubborn. I like to do things my own way. I don't like to be told what to do, like all those things. So I have to go in and like reconcile that stuff, right? I have to be like, hey, like, no, I'm actually like sabotaging myself by believing some of these things. And so part of what so my girlfriend, she's in marketing. And part of it was like the recognition. I'm like, hey, like I suck at marketing. Like I I don't really know what I'm doing here. I need some help, right? And so it's like that's the vulnerability piece is like, hey, because so much of life is like you pretending to know what you're doing, but then it's like when you're actually the point of like, hey, like, no, this really frustrates me, and my mind doesn't work that way. So it's just like that's part of like recognition of like knowing who you need around you to help you with your success is like, hey, I have these weaknesses here. Like there's somebody that's already really good at that, right? And if you can just like acknowledge that you're not, and that surrender happens, now you can like get the help you need. And we've talked about that before, but it's really just like running your own business. Like it exposes like every weakness you have all the time, right? It's just kind of like it's a never ending journey, and I love it. But then there's always like, oh, I wish like this problem was solved a long time ago. The continuous surrender to it to be like, okay, yeah, like this isn't all about me. Like there are helpful people around me. Like I can get help if I need it. I don't have to know what I'm doing in every area. I should have some like baseline knowledge, so that I kind of know the foundations, but it's like, is it going to serve me to like go be an expert at that? Or is it better for me to just get that help? Right. And because is that the best use of my gifts and abilities? Because like I've spent my lifetime developing this one skill, right? Do I need to start to go down all these other rabbit holes? Probably not. That's not like the best use of my time. And so before we started recording today, I'm just like, hey, like I don't listen to podcasts. Like I don't.
Sure. Yeah.
I like what can we do to make this a little bit more interesting? I'm just a lot of these things. It's like I don't have a passion for it, but like I want to help people. It's kind of getting to that place of like, how can I position myself to be of greater service and get out of my own way a little bit? And so that's the thing. So I'm motivated by fun and adventure. So while I was going through this whole like period, I'm like I'm gonna go to Europe at the end of the summer. Like I'm gonna make it happen. And so it seemed like very impossible the duration of the summer. I was like, because nothing was happening. And then it was just kind of like the week before, because I'm not goal oriented, but I did set that goal and I did focus on it. And I said, this is going to happen. That's the thing is it's like all the pieces lined up a week beforehand and I'm like, okay, I'm free again. Right.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I got my energy back and I'm like in a flow and I'm like, okay, I'm like ready to create more. Right. So it's like the periods of struggle are extremely valuable. And it's where you start to soften and let go of those parts of you. It's like letting go of the perfectionist mentality, letting go of like, I need to do it all, letting go of like all those ideas that are going to limit me. It's getting to the place of, yeah, how can I open things up? How can I do them differently? How can I create more flow in this area so that I don't have these problems again? Because that's the thing is, it's just like, based on my skill level coaching, I'm just like, yeah, these things shouldn't really be issues anymore. But it's like I do have a marketing problem. I do have like problems in the other areas of like people knowing about me.
Yeah.
So it's just working those puzzles.
As you were going through that, I was thinking about that, like, and tied in with this idea of self-belief. Some of it is around, like, as you were talking about bringing in people to help you and, asking your girlfriend to help with marketing and like recognizing these opportunities for yourself. Some of that also, though, like ties back to this belief. It's like the belief that like, like where your best value is. And so this is backing yourself to
Mhm.
sort of outsource these things. And so it is a good way to frame that up in terms of self-belief doesn't mean you have to do it all alone.
I think that's the thing is it's so much of what it's shame. It's like, oh, this really stems from like basically school. We're thrown into this environment and we're like supposed to know all these things, and then it's you're not good at this one thing, and then you start comparing yourself to everybody else, and you're like, well, this person's good at it. Like, what's wrong with me, right? And then so that we develop this chip on our shoulder. of like, oh, like, yeah, I'm supposed to be good at science and math and, English, and like you're supposed to know it all somehow. And if you don't get the right marks, then you're not good enough. It's a very flawed system. But it's then we get into adult life, and yeah, I'm supposed to know all about like financial stuff and taxes and like all these things. And then if I start a business, okay, like, yeah, let's say I'm a coach or I have a product to sell. Now it's like it's not me just being really good at like designing a product. Now it's like, how do I market it? Like, how do I set up these systems? Like, and all these things, it's an ongoing learning process, right? And we all kind of think that we're supposed to know it all every step of the way, but it's just impossible. We all need other people. And it's that recognition that, hey, it's okay if I don't know this. There's somebody else that's like does, and they're an expert at it. So why not talk to them, right? Or enlist their help in some way or whatever. So it's just kind of that knowing you don't have to do it all, knowing that you don't have to be good at everything. I think part of being humble is that recognition that like it's knowing your weaknesses. And it's when you know your weaknesses, it's not pretending like you're strong in your weaknesses, because that's where problems happen. Is like I'm like pretending I'm an expert in something I don't know. That's a problem with a lot of industries, like coaching or marketing or whatever. There's people that they just read a marketing book and they're like, okay, I'm an expert marketer. Or when everything like takes a ton of experience to really know the depths of it. And or a coach that just took some certification and they've never actually worked with anybody. It's kind of these ideas of like, well, the way you actually become the expert is by spending thousands of hours at whatever that is. And so it's important for everybody to like find what that is for them. What's that thing that I want to invest that time into, and that I can just I'm obsessed with it. So it's like on my mind all the time. I'm always like trying to work the puzzles associated with it. That's where we channel our self-belief into. I've come a long way in this area. So now I have this strength behind it where I don't even question myself anymore. It's that hardened, like tried and true. I worked really hard at this, and in that process, I learned the depths of it. And now I can see the different dynamics of every problem related to that. It's kind of a lot freeing ourselves up to just be great at something rather than being decent at a lot of things. And I think we can really like when you're really great at something, I think that's where a lot of joy and fulfillment comes from, because you like tapped into the thing that you just like love to express yourself through this medium. When you feel like the most yourself, it's when you feel the most alive. I think it's a worthwhile journey to just really like go all in on something, to develop that self-belief where it's like unwavering and unquestioning. Right. And it can be a fun process too. I think a lot of us like try to like hedge, where it's just like, because we don't trust that things will work out, or we kind of expect things to fail or to be disappointed. And that comes from feeling a lot of disappointment in your life. Right. I don't quite trust that if I put all this time and energy into something, it's going to pay off. But like, that's the exact journey we need to develop that hardened self-belief is I work through all my doubts in the process because I stuck with something through the thick and thin, and good and bad, and all I just went the depths with it. And so that's what really creates this deep well that's like unshakable. Right. And so it's pretty cool to see that, like when somebody's taken that journey, you can just tell, like, because they just like light up when they're doing what they do, because it's like their whole body and mind is like in agreement with it. And so it just flows.
I want to go back just a second on the not being sort of decent as at everything, seeing as I am a little bit decent at everything. It is very much in my personality to like try something for a while and get to a point with it and then be like, done, moving on. It's a pretty consistent pattern for me. And even I consume a lot of podcasts, and between this podcast and another, we're coming up on 70 produced episodes. So like we're getting there. There's still like lots of things to figure out. Certainly no rich roll level production or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I do think about that because I do want to make sure people like also are not feeling any kind of way. You can call me out for however I'm feeling at the moment about being a generalist versus a specialist in terms of the number of things that I take on in my life. But I think some of that in the self-belief part is this like little voice in the back of my mind that's like, oh yeah, you are capable of everything.
So it's a lot of what you're doing. It's all like complementary stuff that, okay. So you basically like, you find like the primary thing you're obsessed with, but then there can also be like offshoots to that. There's like different expressions that go through it of like, well, this idea that I'm obsessed with, there's these things that it doesn't take me kind of moving off it very much to like land in this other aspect of it. Creative things are generally that way of I can see the commonalities in all these things. So I can learn these other skills are just like smaller offshoots of the main skill that I'm already doing. And so, we can have this like kind of dynamic way of being where I've kind of mastered or not mastered a lot of things, but I'm moving the needle on a lot of different things at once because because there's the commonality that runs through all of them. That would be, there's like, okay, so like coaching, for instance, it's like I started with athletes and then you just keep like bridging it over into like, okay, corporate and, I could do mentorship for young men or whatever. And it's like, you just like find commonalities that it's just like, okay, there's threads here that I can pair together similar skills, but that's all going to be the offshoot of like a main skill. It's going to be this thing that kind of runs through everything, but I, sometimes it's hard to find or identify what that is because there's a unique skill set that's going on, but then it can be expressed in different ways. It can be seen as a bit of a generalist, but there's also like, well, I'm able to see to bridge the gap between all these things because it's all stemming from the work I'm doing here, right? Where
Sure.
it's just like an easy move over. And and so, there's different expressions of that, but it would be if I was like really focused on this and then I jump way over here to something that has nothing to do with it, that's going to be a harder like bridge to gap or
Sure.
gap. Yeah. Bridge, whatever.
Yes.
Um,
I can just, yeah. I know what you mean.
I can't draw the commonalities to it.
Sure.
They're generally there, but it's like harder to see.
Yeah.
So it'd be like an artist like getting into like investing or something, right?
Sure.
It's like those are like two different realms, but it's like the artist that sees investing through the lens of art, like that might be something interesting and special. It's like
Sure.
they're bringing that thing that, hey, like I'm really creative, and so how can I apply this creativity to something that's usually just like boring and dry and number based, right? Like it's like it would be a different that would be a unique way of looking at that. A lot of these things, if something's just one step over, it's just it's like, oh yeah, it's just the same thing. It's just a little bit different expression. And so those things pair well together pretty well, where we don't have to put in a ton of extra work in order to continue to move along.
That makes sense. I think I judge myself kind of harshly on that because this is as we were talking through that and you're talking about getting into something and diving deep. And I think about if I were to go through like my list of past life things and just be like, some of them are you can make the jump. So we've talked about it in the right. I trained horses. I did that for, I gave riding lessons. I was like a decade. Now I'm working in the corporate arena, particularly in learning and development. But there was like a window in there where I worked for this winemaker. I don't know if you and I have talked about this very much, but I
Oh,
worked
we've
for
never.
this.
This is something new I don't know about
Oh,
you.
okay. So I worked for this winemaker in this like in between time. And I got like super fascinated with winemaking. And I would say I was not necessarily a huge like wine drinker before that. Like it was fine. I liked it. It was fine. But that was like a whole different thing because it's like art and science and whatever. Anyway, I went so far as to like Aaron and I planted a whole vineyard. Like a whole,
Yeah.
like we had the whole thing. We planted all the vines, spent thousands of dollars. I learned how to make wine at home. It was like a whole, like, kid you not. And then one day I was just like, I'm done with this. Don't need to do it anymore. Like, got all that I wanted to and just dropped it. We sold the vineyard. We moved away from the whole thing.
Hmm.
So I think that's where, anyway, my point is like, I like can get in these places where I judge myself really harshly, where I'll be like, you've never specialized in anything. Like all you do is like take something to a certain point and then quit.
I would argue, there's probably some specialty in all this that maybe it's like difficult to identify. Of like, if you were to like line up all the things you've dabbled in, and sometimes it's more than dabble, it's you've been with it for a while, like the horses and all, but it's just like, okay, there's going to be some thread that you can like connect some dots to being like, oh, this is what I'm really like interested in. It shows up in all these things somehow. Generally, you have to go pretty deep to try and identify that, but it's like, I am a big believer in like whatever excites you, like you owe it to yourself to explore those things. And it's permission to change your mind. It's like all that stuff of like, well, yeah, like I took this as far as I wanted to, but because I did that, the next thing I go into, once again, it accelerates that process. Because if I have skill sets that, let's say they're a little more spread out, but there are some similarities. Now, if I'm filling in the gaps there, all that stuff's easier too, right? So, they call it like a Renaissance man or a Renaissance person or whatever, to be
Sure.
like, yeah, like this person just like tried a million things, and then they like, you see that a lot with athletes too. Like somebody might be a good baseball player and they're just like athletic. So then I would try football, basketball, like, and they're just like naturally good at a lot of things. So there can be these exceptions, but I think at the end of the day, we want to have that mental focus to be like, okay, I am obsessed about something right now. And because of that, I put a lot of work into it. And that might not be a forever thing, but there might be a thread in there that we carry with us through everything.
Sounds
Mhm.
good.
I,
We can
well,
we
and
can
that's,
unpack this more at any time if you want, but yeah.
I think you and I have that in common, like not wanting to be put in a box, right? All that stuff of like, don't put a label on me. Like I'm going to do whatever I want. I think those are some of those motivators of like, well, I think part of life is like coming here to have a good time. And that means like experimenting a lot of times, like just being playful and curious, and an engaged mind with something that's good. That's dynamic. That like, once again, it creates all these parallels that apply to so many things. That's the thing with coaching, where I see all these things with athletes, but then it's just like I can step into the corporate world without like thinking about it. And I'm just like, oh, these are like similar ideas. It's just different expressions. That's also, once you're in your main skill though, it's like the confidence like naturally translates into other things. Your mind's not making the exception. It's just, oh, this is like the same thing, but over here.
We're gonna kind of put a bow on this conversation about self-belief. We went in a few kind of interesting directions. I think it was a pretty fun conversation. Yeah, but if you had to call out your main takeaways around self-belief, what would those be?
Yeah, I mean, self-belief's just, it's got to come back to you at some point. I think many of us just give up our power too easily to other people, and that's generally the people that have hurt us, and we have wounds around it. And so ultimately, like everything is this like battle against yourself at the end of the day. I think if we can turn our attention to that, we can move through things a lot faster, right? So self-belief is just this ability to trust yourself when you step into the unknown of like, I'm going to go put myself out there in a new way. And I trust that I can figure it out along the way. That keeps us out of stagnation because I'm able to overcome things with courage. Like I'm able to take some things that are, there might be some fear and anxiety there, but I'm more attached to becoming more. I'm more attached to a brighter future than to giving into, kind of the stagnation and the fears. And that's a powerful thing, is like once we meet that and continue to meet that, we develop the courage, and then the courage that becomes pretty hardwired into us, where we're just like, oh, like, these are just steps I know I should take. And so I know as I take them, problems are going to arise that I need to solve. You trust that I can figure those things out. And so you get that self-belief through willing, we could do willingly, that's optimal, of choosing to do hard things intentionally. And that's backed by your purpose, or, your curiosity and interest is the things that excite you the most. We're more apt to take steps there. And so those are powerful confidence builders. And it's just that willingness to move with things. If not, life is going to give you challenges, whether you like it or not. And those will also be opportunities for you to strengthen yourself, but it's like, do you want to choose your challenges or do you want them given to you? That's kind of that option. But, that's the nature of life has changed. There's always things to move forward to. And so, yeah, that self-belief is kind of really when we dig in and we start to think about like, yeah, why not believe in myself? Why not try new things? Why not follow my desires and see what happens, right? Because we get too locked into safety and fears, and we need the known rather than the unknown. But the unknown is always that worthy journey to discover ourselves on a deeper level, and that's really where we start to shed a lot of the things that make us doubt and question ourselves. So those are all pretty worthy paths, and so I encourage you to seek out the challenges that you're aligned with, and that's going to be what actually would excite you if you can take some steps in your life.
All right, so we have an exciting thing. By the time this comes out, it will be 1 week till the event. So I don't know if we want to talk a little bit about that, but also like where folks can find you, connect with you if they're interested in your work, working with you, or
Mhm.
going deeper.
Yeah, so October 25th, I'll be holding my first live event. So that'll be outside Madison, Wisconsin. And I'm calling it Unstuck, a day to break free. So, we're going to go into why we get stuck. It's a lot of these things we talk about in the podcast, just kind of really being hung up on the past and not being able to see things in a different way that gives you a path forward. So, with the workshop, the first half of the day will be teaching on the mechanics of how we get stuck and how to free ourselves. And then the second half will be group coaching. So, it's really fun to get a group together and kind of just open up about what everybody's experiencing and finding solutions to those problems. It can be really rewarding because a lot of times it's easier to see things in other people than we see in ourselves. And so it really helps that create that awareness. So super excited about that. So that'll be October 25th. If you hear this and there's still a spot open and you're in the area, reach out.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you'd like to have a call with me, so I offer a free strategy session that's 30 minutes where I get to know what you a little bit deeper and see what you've got going on and offer how this work can help you. So you can schedule that on my website at brandonthielk.com. Also follow me on socials at Brandon Thielk on YouTube and Instagram, and then at bthielk on TikTok. Yep,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah,
And,
places.
and
Yeah.
Yep. And then also register for my newsletter on my website as well. So each Monday I send out updates on the business and give you some insights for the week. So valuable stuff there. So please like, subscribe, share, and let us know any topics you'd like us to talk about.
Yeah, super helpful if you have things that you'd like us to cover. Want to go into that? All the links for all the things will be in the show notes if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, or in the description if you happen to be watching on YouTube.
All right. Well, yeah, I think this was fun. A little bit different style.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
All right.
Talk to you later.
I'll see you, Holly.